This modern world of science and invention is of particular interest to women.
Focus of media attention around the world has been on Dr. Sally Ride, who emphasizes that she's a mission specialist and a scientist who just also happens to be a woman. However, as the first woman to fly in space on board a U.S. spacecraft, history is undoubtedly going to focus on that as well as her accomplishments to date, such as a doctorate in physics from Stanford University.
I am pretty sure you've all heard the name Sally Ride, and if you haven't, there are lots of resources out there that cover the basics of Sally's story. So because of this, I am only briefly covering the typical facts about Sally, and instead I'm focusing on some information that is often left out of the traditional coverage of Sally's story. Sally Ride was born on May 26, 1951 in Encino, Los Angeles, California, which happens to be the location of the Karate Kid mural. Sorry, I get distracted really easily. I just finished season 3 of Cobra Kai. I apologize. Back to Sally. Her interests were encouraged and nourished by her parents, except when she got interested in football, yes, American football, which her parents determined to be too dangerous. She trained from a young age to play tennis professionally and explored the career option extensively. After trying to make a career out of tennis, Sally decided to return to college, attending Stanford, playing on the tennis team, and majoring in physics and English. She stayed on at Stanford, completing a master's degree and doctorate in physics. So she is a 3-time alum of Stanford University. I love that because I think of the 2-time GW alum thing or the 3-time GW alum thing. Anyway, I digress.
I am a 2-time GW alum to be.
Samesies. In 1977, NASA decided 2 important things that allowed Sally to become an astronaut. 1, NASA decided to expand beyond recruiting pilots and focus on recruiting scientists to complete research in space. 2, NASA decided it was time to put women in space. So, after seeing an ad for NASA's recruitment in 1977, Sally decided to apply. 5 women were selected to be the first female astronauts as part of NASA's 1978 class. Sally was one of those women. The women trained in scientific and physical tasks, as well as in jet flight. Sally excelled. In 1982, Sally married fellow astronaut Stephen Hawley, and they divorced 5 years later. In June 1983, Sally was one of the 5 mission members to fly aboard the Challenger space shuttle. She became the youngest American person to go to space and still is the youngest American person to have been in space at the age of 32. And she was also the first American woman to fly in space, as I'm sure many of you have heard. That seems to be her claim to fame. In interviews leading up to her first mission launch, reporters asked her some of the most inappropriate questions I've ever heard someone ask in an interview, including, but not limited to, what makeup do you safely wear in space? And will you be able to have children? And they did not phrase it as nicely as I have. After you go to space. In addition to the questions, Sally also suffered from being the subject of sexist jokes. Johnny Carson, who was a late night show host for those who've never heard of him, made a joke suggesting Sally would be late for the launch, looking for a purse to match her astronaut shoes. I have a lot of feelings about that. I won't make the frustration noises that Alana does not like to have to try and find a way to transcribe for our podcast. But oh my God, I don't know how to express how I feel about that. It's just the most disgusting thing. She was unhappy about all of this. She was saddened that society still could not treat her and her male coworkers with equal respect. And she spoke out about this before and after the mission because she couldn't stand how people were being so poo-poo. So that really just grinds my gears.
Does it? Wait. Does it grind every gear in your solar system of a body?
Yes, it does. Quote from Haley that really fits this episode.
We referenced it in the Aaron episode, so it's not just like an inside joke between us. The listeners should be able to know it.
Well, if they listen to every episode instead of skipping around.
But everyone should listen to the Aaron episode. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is our most listened to episode. So we have people who've listened to that and never listened to anything else unless 300 of the 383 listens are Alana, which is possible.
I don't think 300, but a lot of them, yeah.
In 1984, Sally participated in her second shuttle mission with a focus on observing Earth from space, which is a pretty fun job. Unfortunately, this was her last mission in space. So I think a lot of people hear about Sally Ride and they assume astronauts go to space over and over and over. But going to space is really difficult. It's something that takes a lot of work, a lot of physical and emotional energy. So Sally only went twice. Other people go longer. Some people stay on the ISS, the International Space Station, for longer periods of time. Some people don't, and that's just how that is. In 1986, tragedy struck the NASA family, and I'm about to get real serious for a second. This story is a little sad, gets a little serious, diverges from the normal happy giddiness of the show, and goes into some of the deeper stuff and darker stuff that we cover. So if you don't want to talk about anything like that and you don't want to hear anything like that, just skip ahead like a minute and 30 and we'll get back to the other lighter stuff. So the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded 73 seconds after liftoff. There were 5 astronauts on board: Ronald Irwin McNair, Michael John Smith, Dick Scobie, Ellison Onizuka, the first Asian American in space, and Judith Arlene Resnick, Sally's NASA 1978 classmate, so one of the first 5 women selected as an astronaut. 2 non-astronauts selected as payload specialists, which is basically a person who's not an astronaut but is going to space to do some sort of research and is sponsored by a private organization or a corporation that wants to do science, so they train with the astronauts, but they aren't NASA astronauts. 2 of them were selected to also go to space in this mission. A teacher, set to be the first American school teacher in space, Christina McGaffey. I think I said it right. I hope I said that right. And engineer Gregory Jarvis were also on board. The entire 7-person crew perished in the disaster. NASA put a pause on the shuttle program, and Sally retired from flying in space. Sally retiring from her role as an astronaut did not mean she was leaving NASA behind, however. Sally was appointed by President Ronald Reagan to an investigation panel intended to explore the circumstances that led to the failure of the Challenger shuttle and increase safety in the shuttle program moving forward. Sally was passionate about uncovering the whole truth and asked tough questions of the witnesses who testified to the panel. But Sally wasn't only tough, she was also compassionate. One witness, an engineer who had helped construct the fatal shuttle, revealed that he had been shamed by his coworkers. They were not NASA employees. They were part of a third party that was contracted to do work. His coworkers were shaming him for exposing issues with the functions of seals on the shuttle, that they would malfunction during cold weather. He pointed it out. They would shame him. And the issue ended up being investigated as a factor in the mission's failure. After he finished his testimony, Sally gave him a hug, something she was not known to do often, especially in public. Before his death in 2012, the engineer noted that Sally's support was one of the few things that got him through the guilt and sadness he felt in the toughest moments of his life. After the investigation, Sally transitioned her career to space administration, taking the role of special assistant to the NASA Administrator for Long-Range and Strategic Planning. The following year, Sally led a group who wrote a document outlining future recommendations for NASA's shuttle program. It suggested the construction of a permanent moon outpost and exploration of Mars. Sally then retired from NASA and became a physics professor, which is pretty cool because you can imagine being a woman studying physics and having Sally as your professor. That would be pretty cool. That would be like, oh, hey, my professor was in space. What'd your professor do? And I'm sure that would help a lot of women in the physics program at the university dream big. Sally became very passionate about education. In 2001, she and her partner started Sally Rides Science, a company with the goal of making STEM education fun and encouraging students from all backgrounds to explore careers in STEM. In 2003, Sally was once again called to the difficult task of investigating a disaster that took the lives of 7 of her fellow astronauts. Sally was the only person to serve on the investigation panels for both the Challenger and Columbia accidents. One of the aspects of Sally's life that often gets ignored is her relationship with Dr. Tam O'Shaughnessy. This is because during Sally's life, she kept her personal life private. Sally and Tam met when they were kids, competing in tennis competitions. They remained close friends throughout life and eventually fell in love. They began their romantic relationship in 1985 and were partners in life and business for 27 years until Sally passed away. Tam has a doctorate in school psychology and is currently executive director of the Sally Ride Science at UC San Diego, the organization which resulted after UC San Diego acquired the Sally Ride Science program Sally and Tam founded together. During their time together, Tam and Sally wrote children's books about science, and Tam has continued to author educational science books for children on her own. On July 23, 2012, Sally passed away after a long battle with pancreatic cancer. In 2013, President Obama posthumously honored Sally with a Presidential Medal of Freedom. Tam accepted the award on Sally's behalf and was introduced as her life partner. They didn't try and do the friends or roommates thing. They were like, her life partner, Tam. Well,
No
I think they said
gals being
Dr.
pals.
O'Shaughnessy. They did not do the gal pal
Gals
thing.
being pals.
They went off for it. I mean, I guess some crazy people could be like, life partner doesn't mean anything, but I mean, I think it's pretty clear.
Yes, it does.
I think it's pretty
Shut the
clear what
fuck
life
up.
partner means. As far as we know, of the 550 American individuals who have traveled to space, Sally has been the only LGBT plus individual. If another American who has flown in space identifies as LGBT, they have not shared this information publicly. The moral of the story, I think we need some more gays in space, or at least some more openly gays in space, to inspire the young gays to gay in space. Words, things. I would love to have more space gays. My mouth is like trying to make words, and it's like a tongue twister that isn't a tongue
I
twister.
heard one point Mace gays, and I was like, no, no.
Space gays.
Space gays.
Highly preferable. Gloria Steinem, if you guys have heard of her, prominent woman, wrote, millions of little girls are going to sit by their television sets and see they can be astronauts, heroes, explorers, and scientists. I believe this quote perfectly sums up Sally's legacy, as she was most certainly inspiring to many women and has inspired many to pursue science. But Sally's goal wasn't to be an inspiration. She often said that her dream was just to soar amongst the stars, and that she did. Of her time in space, she is quoted saying, "The stars don't look bigger, but they do look brighter."